This is my street. Not the most salubrious of residential havens, but it's home. And it has been for the last 32 years, on and off. My street has another name, Crook Alley. It was a bit of a slum back in the day, late 60s onwards, I'd say. A bit of a no-go for those in the know. You would mention in passing some detail about the bridge or the station or the laundry shop on the corner or the windmill, and there'd always be a definite attitude. People would look around for their children and call them, or look at their imaginary watches, or they'd pull their coat collars a little bit tight around their necks and get a foggy look in their eyes and say things like, "Oh, you live there?" Or, "Wow, I'd have never thought of looking for you there. Gosh, that must have changed." No, the upper part in my address has got nothing to do with upperness at all. No, it's not upper crust, it's not upper tea or up your own arse. It's the complete opposite. It's downtrodden. It's woe-begotten and forgotten. More like wee woody arsehole. There's been some notorious goings on in this street. Somewhere etched between village folklore and myth and legend and downright fiction. And there's been crimes and sentences and convictions, embroidered like some Hollywood movie and regaled to all newcomers like myself as some rite of passage. It still goes on to this day. I was talking to my neighbour, my best friend, about the lovely blokes who'd done my roof. I had a complete roof job. Great blokes they were, provided the scaffolding. They were quick, friendly, and very, very reasonable. So much so that I asked them if they'd put a window in my loft for a loft extension. And they said, yeah, they'd do it, and I think we agreed a fixed price. Well, that wasn't going to happen any time soon, was it? They were both being entertained at one of Her Majesty's prisons for some considerable time. I didn't like to ask her why, but judging by the length of the sentence, it must have been something pretty bad. I'd hazard a guess, some involuntary manslaughter. Never did get that window fitted, but I hear they're out. They did 7 years. And then she told me that there'd been a murder, and not just any murder, but a decapitation, the head swiped clean off in front of the whole family. Well, to be honest, I'd lived in a street in London for 10 years with 2/3 of Banana Armour and Dennis Nielsen. Nothing really phases me. You see, the thing about living on a street with crooks and rogues and vagabonds and ne'er-do-wells is, well, pardon the expression, but they don't shit on their own doorstep. So in many ways, this street was as safe as houses, and it has been ever since. I can literally go for weeks without locking the back door or closing the window. It's a marvellous way to live. There's a real we look after our own kind of attitude. There's a real freedom to it. There's definitely something to be said for living in the centre of a crime wave. In fact, I remember a bloke coming to my door once. He knocked on it. He said, you left these in the ignition, Gov. You ought to be a bit more careful." His name was Crab. He was a sheep stealer and an ace poacher to boot. He was also a trained butcher, which meant that he could go into a field, he could sort the sheep out, bag it up, and it'd be in your freezer by 2 a.m. The foxes would finish what was left, and the farmer had no idea it had happened. He often gave me a brace of pheasants or some rabbit. He even gave me some knock-off lamb once. You learn not to ask questions. You simply said, thank you very much, and you went in the kitchen and got the slow cooker out. There's been some things going on in this street, I tell you. Even to this day, little packets of white powder changing hands in broad daylight. Drugs dealers in expensive trainers. Boys in fast cars with ever faster girlfriends without a care in the world. There's been stolen goods coming and going up this street. You name it, it comes up. Fridges, televisions, computers, gadgets aplenty. It comes in red hot, cools down and gets moved on. And why? Well, it's because this street gets overlooked. Yeah, it's a bit shabby and it's a bit run down. And it could do with a bit of TLC here and there. But, you know, a coat of paint on the railings, the road could do with a tarmac. Other gardens could do with some garden maintenance. Just a bloody good weed would help. We've gone out as a posse every now and again to do that, but the novelty, it soon wears off. We are a low priority, apparently. 30 years of being a low priority, and there is jack shit money to spend on anything. And now, with all this pandemic nonsense, do you know, I think the police must know what's going on. I mean, if they can't see it, they can smell it. There is folk going green in greenhouses bigger than the footprint of their own homes. Even in the loft, and illegal brewing. And we only know that because one of the neighbours had his roof blown clean off. The stink was in the air for days. And some on this street are in big trouble with the police, and often. And I think, if I'm honest, half the street must be tagged. I do remember those 6 coppers coming down the street once, almost in a row of arm locks. Very fetching they were. The blokes with their nice beards and their very handsome looks. And the ladies all fit, blonde, pretty. They looked like they were in a band, a cross between Steps and the Village People. They did not look like they were about to jimmy in a front door, which they did. No, what I wanted to see them do was shimmy up the street and be all gold lame and tassels underneath, singing, "Reach for the stars." Now that would have been a turn up for the books. My very own musical in my very own street. Now, lockdown hasn't been too bad for us here, but it ain't been a musical either, more's the pity. But I think we've made the best of it. I mean, we have had amazing weather. We've got lovely country walks, whichever way you look. And the beach is only a 15-minute walk away. And it's a gorgeous bay with plenty of space. We are also lucky enough to have a town that's well stocked and well supplied with food. The best of it coming from the local farm shops. And some of us have got allotments, which I'm proud to say I have myself. Go out my back gate and I'm on a 50 yards worth of escapism, mindfulness and oneness with nature. My very own little eco corridor. And in those early days, I remember there was a lot of sitting, gawping at the TV at the 5 p.m. address to the nation. The double act of Boris and Whitty. They'd be witty with the facts and the figures and the science and the strategy. And then Boris would come on with the spin and the slipperiness and the dead behind his eyes and his lies. And then there'd be the news at 6. And at BBC, of course, so there'd be more of the same. And then there'd be a special programme to do it all again. And then Bingo stingo. Here we go again, it's the news at 10. It was like being on a hamster wheel of information with no way of getting off. Evenings full of grim figures, empty shelves, deaths, no toilet paper. And then on a Tuesday, we'd be outside the front door, clapping for the NHS. More deaths, more clapping, more. No equipment. Nurses doing their best to save the nation. Anyway, I live in a 2-bed, two up, two down, end of terraced house, one of 6 in a row. It's an old quarryman's cottage, and there's a lot of chalk in there. I mean, fuck, there is a lot of chalk. Well, I live near the White Cliffs of Dover, so I suppose that makes sense. But I remember my cellar. It was all chalk and all flint. A real soakaway, never any smell. I remember finding an albino frog down there once. It was a bugger to dig up. The pneumatic drill kept slipping on the flint and buggering up the operator's wrists. Got through a lot of workmen on that dig. Still, it's now a lovely cellar kitchen. And I was what you called a DFLer, a down from London Londoner. Not so frowned on then as they are now. No, then we were quirky and foreign and good value. Now the DFLers are annoying with their fast cars and their fast cash and their big ideas. Now, I do the frowning. Now this street ends abruptly at the top. It promises nothing more than a short track into a field and later on into a wood and a copse. They're building on it now. 270 fucking houses made of ticky-tack on a field that promised everything. My field of dreams. The seasons being a lovely way of passing the time by simple growth of a crop or two, the wheat or the corn or the peas. They would plough the field and then plant it, and there'd be tiny little green shoots of growth, and then more growth, and then big growth, and then one big final growing spurt. And that's when we would go in under the covers of darkness and steal the corn. It was the best corn ever. I mean, stolen bounty always tastes better, doesn't it? Oh, and butter. Good butter, none of your cheap shit. Creamy butter, and spend the cash. And then pepper along it, and salt that crackles as it crackles from a mill. Oh, my taste buds, they're salivating as I do it. Oh, my word. I'd eat 10 or more corns in a day. It was worth the extreme after effects. Well, you don't really digest corn, do you? More it passes through your system and you evacuate pretty much corn. So with a good wind and the right stance, you could pebble dash your own home. And look, I'm using euphemisms here, folks, so don't get offended. But the stomach cramps and the wind, but it's once a year and it's so worth it. And then they would harvest the field, and what was left was the clumps of earth. We would have the view back. What an amazing view with the windmill and the freedom of space and the view. But alas, no more that view. No, now it'll be curbsides and sleeping policemen and green bins and minuscule but manicured front lawns with neat little white fences around it. Well, that's what the show home looks like anyway. I had a bloody good look. A crappy little box filled with shitty home bargains interior and a crappier front door. They're supposed to promise everything and delivers nothing. What is it about this wall art? Can somebody explain, please? I mean, big fucking frondy flowers, iguanas, butterflies, massive and garish, ugly as shit, badly made and fucking everywhere. Is it fashionable? How? How is that fashionable? So, you see, that's my future. 800 people in a new estate filling their crappy little boxes with shitty home bargains interiors and crap wall art. Lucky me! And with lockdown, there was a new person to our well-trod path to the cold-blown woods. The lockdowner. Oh yeah, they have a name. I christened them. The lockdowner. As I said, the street ends abruptly at the end. It's a destination. You have to have a reason for going there. You either live there, or you're visiting, or you're delivering. Drugs, drop-off and collection included, of course. And parking, well, that's for residents only. And that is a total jamboree and a game of dodgems always. So with this first stage of lockdown and the need to get out of the house, to exercise, to walk, to jog, to run, it was like the world and their uncle, who'd never heard of my street, were coming down it as if it won Kent's attraction of the year. It was like Oxford Street on sales day. Who and what were those fucking people doing down my street? Families with 2.2 children and a dog. Nay, dogs. New couples looking newly hitched. Old people, well heeled in barbers and properly supported footwear. Young girls in lycra, didn't mind them. Pretending to power walk and talk and shoot shit with their besties. Others in head to toe gym gear who really should not have been wearing it. I mean, arses like football pitches. It was like being in a documentary. You know, the ones where the animals gather at the watering hole. I could almost hear David Attenborough narrating in my head. The whole of life was parading past me and looking in. It was a migration, social distant herding, lemmings heading towards a cliff. In truth, it was like I was in a goldfish bowl. People would stare in and go, "Oh, look, that's really homely." Or, "It's too small for me, there's nowhere for my baby grand." Oh, poor things. They'll never be able to upsize. The footprint of this entire house would fit into my kitchen diner. Oh, look, it's super sweet. It's just big enough for one, just like those hobbit houses back home. And this was happening 7 days a week at all times of the day. Civilization was connecting through my humble, tumble-down little street and making free uses of my wood and my field. I felt indignation and affronted. Lockdown had given them an excuse to come up my back alley uninvited. I had a "how dare you" attitude. I wanted to shout, "Fuck off!" I didn't. And with people come dogs. Dogs of all shapes and sizes. Now, I'm not adverse to a dog, but I never had one as a kid, and I haven't got one now. I'm more of a cat lover. And it wasn't long before this street was looking like an unofficial crufts. I mean, thank God they were on leads, because there's a couple of dogs owned by one of my neighbours that are thuggish feral. And when they hear another dog bark, it's like, they make a noise like nothing on earth. And one of them jumps so high, it's almost like he's about to take off. If they had got out, it would have been total carnage. Luckily, most people are good citizens and clean up after their dog. Proper bags, proper conscientious about it. Others, though, they literally don't give a shit. And it wasn't long before this street was looking like a dog latrine. And it seemed to me that it was the early morning dog walkers who get away with it. I mean, one dog in particular was taking a dump outside my gate every day. And judging by the size of its back end emissions, it wasn't a small dog, more like a fucking pony. So I decided that I was going to watch and wait, a proper stakeout, hiding in the shadows or twitching behind the curtains. And like clockwork, it happened. So I went out under the pretense of putting something in my recycling bin. I said, good morning. He said, good morning. I said, you need to tidy up after your dog. He said, well, I'm frightfully sorry, I don't have any bags. I said, well, that's a bit irresponsible of you, isn't it? I'll go get you a bag. Fuck off, he said. I said, well, that's charming. Fuck off. Well, that's double charming. And choice language for this time in the morning. Look, tidy up after your dog or I'm going to call the police. Oh, and by the way, I'm videoing this from the moment that your dog stopped, sniffed, crouched and shat. So I am going to make you as famous as I can on as many Facebook sites as I can, because everybody loves a good dog poop story. So what's it going to be? He walks off. So I follow him, bag in pocket, dog turd, steaming and smelling revolting. He turns. Fuck off, you fucking fuckwit. Fucking cunt, he says. I don't recall the rest. It was all F's and C's and practically fuck at the end of every word. Limited language skills, obviously. Not very bright. So I said, no, pal, I ain't gonna fuck off. But I'll tell you what I am gonna do. I am going to follow you home, and I am going to drop my pants, and I'm going to do exactly what your dog has done outside my gate. I am going to defecate on your doorstep, and you know what? I am going to do it every morning till doomsday if I have to, until you learn a lesson. He walks off again, so I follow. This time, I am speaking to anybody I can find, naming and shaming, telling him exactly what these dogs and him have done. Some just scuttle for their cars, others run for the train. Some agree with me and tell him to clean up, obviously other dog owners. And I'm about 15 metres behind him when he suddenly stops and he says, you come any closer and I'm going to punch your fucking lights out. I said, you try it, pal. You just try it. And I'll have you in court faster than you can say Jack Robinson on an assault charge. And I will throw the book at you. So what's it going to be? He cleaned up. He went back into the street. He took the bag off me. It's a carrier bag because I don't have dogs, as I said, so I just hoped it was big enough. And he cleaned up. And then he went to put it in my wheelie bin. I told him, oi, pal, no, that's your shit, not my shit. You take it home with you. So that got me thinking about scatology. Now, scatology is the socially biological study of shit. I mean, we're surrounded by it, by shits, by scats, by dung, by poo. And some of it doing wonderful things for the earth, giving it real proper nutrients. And I realised I'm either ranting about it or I'm extolling its virtues. I mean, take my composters. They are doing amazing things with the compost from my allotment. And, wait for it, my chickens. Who knew that chicken shit was worth its weight in gold? Never, ever, ever throw it away. No, what you do is you put it into black sacks and you get it really hot. And that starts the process off. And then you pile them up and let them get on with it. Aided and abetted by the red worms, my bestest friends on the allotment. They are the composters. Literally, they will eat everything. And what comes out the other end can only be classed as black gold. It's like silk running through my fingers. And the crop it gives is award-winning. I had a pumpkin grow so big once that a neighbour thought it was a space opera from a bedroom window. And as for my cucumbers, my award-winning cucumbers, I share them with everybody. They are shiny and sleek, firm, brilliantly green, packed with moisture, a good girth, and the length is perfect. And I get cucumbers given to me in return. We, as a group, put trugs or baskets out and we pass on the produce to everybody. And I gratefully accept it. I'm just ever grateful. It's just a gentle, neighbourly exchange of cucumbers. And no shit.